Yeah, your slides are visible. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Just okay, I'm ready.
Okay, one second. All right, guys, welcome back to the second session of day one of 5 days SGP on grooming for placements by industry experts organized by Computer Engineering Department of CRC. So let me introduce you to our second presenter for the day, who will be guiding you on interview preparation checklist. Trust me, from my experience, I have seen quite a few students who, despite having good technical background, are usually clueless about how to prepare for placement drives. So we have with us Mr. Edwin Clement. Edwin is a full stack developer or a software engineer at BrowserStack, a cross-platform remote testing service. His work in BrowserStack involves maintenance and integrations of in-house tools with external tools that scale with the ever-increasing customer base. Edwin is an alumni of our college from the batch of 2018 and 19. He was an active member of Robocon team and very popular among staff and students for his technical skills and generous nature. He loves tinkering with scalable systems and robotics. He was part of 2 Smart India Hackathon contests and was part of the winning team in 2019 edition. Now I request Edwin to take over the session.
So thank you, Mahendra, for inviting me to this presentation. Now, I would like to just skip on to the work now. Okay, so in regards to this talk, I would like to focus on the people who aim to be software developers because that's where my skills are most suited to, and specifically your technical skills required for that for being a good software developer. Other vital skills will be taken by other speakers more skilled and experienced by me later in this training sessions. So let's begin with your current scenario. Basically, there are many first year, second year, third years in the top audience today. So most of you have at least more than 1 year of time to prepare for the interview that will begin in the 4th year. So I will go through one by one over each of your years and tell you what you need to do so that you will be prepared for the interview from the technical point of view when the time comes for you to join your dream company. So I'll start with the first year. So the first years and the second year is a time when you learn your foundational information. By foundational info, I mean that you need to know your computer skills like algorithms, networking, how do microprocessors work, database. These kind of skills are not directly used in jobs, but it is what enable you to understand the problem statement and how to apply your stack knowledge, the technical knowledge to real life problems. So this first and second year is a critical time when you need to sit in college, not bunk lectures, and listen to teachers on this basic knowledge. Third year, starting from second year going to third year is a time when you need to learn some kind of framework or language or toolkit that you want to use when you go into your company. For example, if you're gaming, you want to build games, you'll learn Unity. If you want to build websites, you might learn Django. You want to do sales and marketing, you might do Salesforce. Like that's a very important tool. There are so many tools online that you can just find more information. You can just Google the company you want to go in and find what tools they use and basically understand what the company requires and go through their toolkit. Just start learning about what that is. And in fourth year, well, you have to set your target on what type of company you want to go, and basically mold yourself in such a way that you are the best possible candidate that you can be when you enter the interview house. So this is the general outline of what your time in college should be. So let's begin with first years. By the way, in case you have any doubts, you can just ask Mahendra sir. He can just ping me while we are talking. So let's first begin with first years. So yeah, in first year, what you basically do is that you just begin with college. I have finished like 2 semesters now. You learned basic sciences and just started on SPA. You have gone through C and you're basically understood at least one language roughly. This is the time when you need to know the concepts like variables, data types, arrays, looping, conditionals, functions. Pointers, while important, are not that important. The base knowledge of like these fundamentals is what is important right now. This thing, information, is critical as these base knowledges is carried across all languages, all stacks. The entire job will be based on this. If you're not clear on this part right now, you should actually just go to your friends, go to teachers to clear this out. Don't be ashamed of asking out for help. In my batch, a lot of my friends kind of faced problem with pointers and they just kind of gave up on the fundamentals, thinking that coding is not for them. Pointers is not that important. Just figure out the fundamentals that like arrays, looping right now. If you like a bit more challenge, if you find this simple, then you can just check out HackerRank and go through how C++ works. It's a step up above C, and it's a bit more of a real life programming kind of thing. C is not something that professionals currently, except in very niche domains use. C++ is where big projects, big old projects are built, and it still has quite a bit of demand. So C++ will be a good place to get started with competitive coding as well. Once you start with C++, you can just get better and better and go to competitive coding and find happiness in coding per se. You can interact with a lot of seniors like my seniors like Samar, Tori, and Ashley, who are very interested in competitive coding, and they can help you a lot in case you have any problems proceeding. Code Academy, HackerRank, HackerEarth, n number of websites are there that will help you in learning more about competitive programming. Secondly, interact with seniors. Now, what I mean by seniors here is that second year, third year, who actually do their mini projects. So if in second year, third year, a lot of seniors do very interesting projects like automatic garbage collection robot, satellite image recognition, cancer detection, etc. Huge number of interesting projects. Just knowing about their projects can enlighten you to what is possible by students like us. So interacting with seniors is something you should build up in this phase and get to know what clubs are in college. Like Robocon is there. I'm a Robocon alumni. There are many other clubs like Vayu Shastra. There is Abada, like n number of clubs. Whatever you like, there is probably a club for it. If there's no club for it, you can make one. Pretty sure like most people will be interested in one new club for them. And well, the last and the most critical point is that you should be enjoying your college life right now. It will be the best 4 years for a while, now 3, at least before coronavirus struck. But yeah, enjoy your life right now. I mean, it is a time to enjoy. So this is basically it for first years. And I think in doing this, while maintaining your college load is good enough for now. In second, after first year, we go to the between first year and second year, which is in like a couple of months down the line. I don't think it's possible this year, but it is something you should look into, like remote internships. So internship, as my previous speaker said, it's very, 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 very important. I cannot stress this enough. Internships take you out from the all learning environment of college and kind of bring you to the real world and show you what's the difference between real world working in a company and just working for what you want. When you go into a company, you realize that just getting the code to work is not good enough. The code should be maintainable, the code should be understandable to others, the code should be like resilient to problems. Like we never do error handling when we code at colleges because we are there to fix the errors. But the coding that companies require have to be auto fixable to a certain extent. Not just that, you need to be built up communication skills, which is very critical. Kushbu ma'am will tell in a later session regarding the importance of that. Teamwork is critical. Most of the time, teamwork is what gets your rather than you solely finishing the work. So teamwork is critical, communication skills is critical, and these two, while you learn it in projects with your friends, it's a whole other ball game when your teammates are professionals. They are not your friends before working. So you have to be learn to build relationships and work together to a goal. Now, where to get internships? Connections are the first way to do it. Ask seniors, ask your teachers, ask professors, ask your father's friend, ask anybody you can basically to get an internship. As my previous speaker told, non-tech internships are also fine. Any internship is worth its weight as long as it can prove that you did something beyond the normal student who does it in college. All this point is like get an edge over the others. Now, if you don't have like contacts, like you can build them. In the meantime, Internshala is a good place to get jobs. FRAP is non-paid, but still, pay is not the important point for you right now. Basically, you need experience. LinkedIn also has a section for internships, so take care regarding that. And alumni, well, our college has alumni section department. Our college has student council as alumni head. They can easily get you in touch with someone or the other. Please use the facilities of alumni department. We are most of the time pretty free. I mean, like it's nowhere near stressful. So you can just reach out to alumni and they can help you a lot regarding internships. Maybe it will happen that we already want to give internship to someone, but we don't know who to give, like because too many applications. So if you can prove that you're good enough, if you can tell that like you really need it, then we can give it to you much easier than you trying to find and prove to somebody else. One extra point I would like to note here is that a lot of NGOs need a lot of help. Like Teach for India is one of them. They give tech internships. If you go there, not just that you will get internships, but you will also get brownie points of social help. NSS, Teach for India, and a lot of support groups are there. And not just NGOs, even technical open source organizations need a lot of help. It is not always technical, it might be just management, it might be just event handling, anything. So NGOs, the advantage of NGOs is that if they don't, because you don't ask for money, they are more they are more relaxed about who gets in. So if you really are willing to work hard and gain the knowledge of the and help the social cause, NGOs are a very good option. In fact, after NGOs, when you go for any other job, the fact that you work for NGO works a lot in your favor. Anyway, my entire point with this slide is that internships are a very, very, very critical part. As the last speaker said, he had 6 internships. You can try for more, you can try for less. Just have at least 2 internships by the time you go to the in front of the interview. If you don't have time for internship, like you're in third year and like you didn't get anything, don't worry. As you can just make more projects in the free time in the vacation that you have on the topics that you like to get an edge over others. So basically, the entire point is get internships. So after this, you go to second year. So in second year, like there's a lot of things you have to do. You need to learn. You already probably learned Java because that's the object-oriented language that we learn. So you need to learn any one of the languages that has objects, basically, the classes, that is object-oriented programming. So it's Java, C++, C#, Python, Ruby, Swift, anything, well, except JavaScript. Don't do JavaScript, okay, because that's screwed up language for now, for beginners. So basically, any language that has classes, it is good and awesome. We need to know this language basically in such a level that you don't need an IDE to write a algorithm. If you use Eclipse for Java, stop using it, start coding in Sublime Text so that you know what classes are required for input, output, file input, file output, database connection would be a plus. And basically how you can get an algorithm from data structures class to your computer working without having to rely on an automated tool. to help you type it. This is critical. I'm saying critical because IDs, while they help you learning, they also become a crutch later on when you need to implement on pen and paper, both on exams as well as in front of the interviewer. If you tell on your resume that you have done XXX project in Java and you are not able to do matching parenthesis program on site, that would immediately like put you off the list for placement, like no questions asked. That, by the way, your resume should be truthful. Don't lie. People easily catch it, and if in the slightest possibility of them catching, will maybe just blacklist you from that company forever. So please don't lie. And so that if this situation never happens, learn properly without an ID on how to code. This is also the time, second year is also the time when you learn algorithms. So basically, you have to learn about linked list, circular list, and sorting, searching, hashing, hash heaps, etc. That this all you learn in data structures and algorithms in second year. But basically, you need to go a step beyond that, because algorithms, what we learn in second year, is basically things that we as humans can actually do. Sorting is possible by humans, and searching is possible by humans. So there's not much of an interest per se. So you should study a bit more complex algorithms, like the ones that I mentioned here: graphs, red-black trees, AVL trees, B trees, dynamic algorithms, etc. These algorithms, on a theoretical level, are quite interesting. So if you forget about the code for a while and just look at them and learn through the resources I mentioned here, Geek4Geeks, you'll see that these are quite interesting, and I mean, how they work per se, and how they are so efficient compared to the normal way of doing it, the dumb box standard way of doing it. Who knows, you might just get interested into this and you might become a pro like someone, like in a year or two down the line. So this is the time when you need to look into algorithms, when you need to know how things happen. Watch out documentaries, watch how hard drives work, watch how computer works, watch how graphics card works. Well, if you're a gamer, you should know how graphic card works. You need to know what you're buying, how, on what basis you're buying. Essentially, this is a good time. You have a lot of free time to do this. Just learn some algorithms and maybe look into how cryptography works, etc. It's a fun time to do. To do all this learning, you need to do some projects. So these projects, well, when the teacher assigns you projects or teacher lets you take projects, they give you projects that's like if you consider the minimum baseline level of knowledge of the class, maybe 10% above them. This is so that everybody can have a touch with the coding and everything. But you in particular, if you want to be the best person for the job, you need to go beyond what the curriculum demands. Basically, like, you are asked to make a web server, so you shouldn't make an Express app that's like 10 lines of code to make a web server. That absolutely doesn't make sense. Even a literature graduate can copy paste it from online. You need to go out and understand what goes into making a decent project. For example, they should be deployed somewhere. Like Heroku is very simple to deploy. Netlify is very simple. You just have to like run 2-3 commands and it's done. After that, you can go for AWS, DigitalOcean. These are production level stuff. If you do the AWS, how to do AWS, a whole avenue of jobs open, where you are in like core team or DevOps team in your company. It's in huge demand. So basically, just this one point, if you follow, deploying your projects, that's a green card to a lot of jobs. Lastly, you need to start going to hackathons. Basically, right now COVID-19 is a terrible time to do it, but online hackathons do happen. Basically, go and experience the event, and you will definitely fail on the first time. I failed for like first 4-5 times. You will fail on the first times because others are better. There's somebody better than you everywhere. Eventually you'll succeed. But on the first 4-5 times, look at what others did. They will have done some amazing things for winning the competition. Like, you might not even know whether that's possible with like that small of amount of effort. Hackathons are 24 hours. In that time, they did something amazing. You understand what they did and what you didn't do, and learn from them. More importantly, talk to them personally and kind of get a connection going, so that you have a network of people later on. Just like we as alumni help you, you can take help from them later on. Most of the time, good jobs come from contacts rather than directly going to a person. And even if you are the best, you can get a better job by going through connection. So go to hackathons. It's a good way of interacting with your peers and seniors. It's a free for all basically. You can just get your better experience in that. So take note of this. Moment you can, go to hackathons. They happen regularly in India, Mumbai. They happen online on Hacker Earth. It's a very easy way to get in. Just Google it, you'll get in. After this, you have to start, if you have a flair for it, you want to try competitive coding. Till the previous page, I talked about projects. So I am the kind of person who is good at projects, not particularly good at competitive coding. But competitive coding is one place where you can, excuse me. Competitive coding is one place where you can be excited about how to apply your intelligence and just not memorize your form algorithms and put it down on paper. So that's what happens in exams. You memorize algorithms, you put it down the paper, and it's done, and you don't really learn anything except improve your memorization skills and shortcuts. In competitive coding, each question requires slightly different something. While slightly different, they also teach you the root level of each code problem and what kind of problems need what kind of solutions. So after some time, you will be able to solve a problem. Like you'll be able to solve a problem without coding it first. You can just tell that, oh, this thing just needs a greedy algorithm and it will be done, and you'll be confident enough to solve it. This kind of confidence is highly admired by the super dream companies. They need you to be good at solving problems rather than just Googling on Stack Overflow. Next point, attend conferences. A lot of them happen across Mumbai. Google Summit, Amazon Summit, JSConf happens every quarter or something. PyCon, Python happens across India. Right now it's in Bangalore in October. Many of them happens a lot of places. So basically, what these give is that what is happening in the industry right now. In hackathons, you are not exactly exposed to it directly, but in conferences, it is slapped on your face. It's like, this is what is happening. Last time in PyCon when I went, basically we had like voice recognition, text processing, medicals, the AI in medicals, augmented surgery help, a lot of interesting things. In fact, even right now, after the conference happened, you get the PPTs for the conference on the website. PyCon 2019 is excellent. You can just check it out. And it's amazing, basically. Even if you don't know the language, it doesn't really matter, because the talks at this language go above and beyond this language in particular. They go to the uses of that language, which can be translated across your any stack. This also helps you to get in touch with geniuses around the world, basically. People fly over from all over the world to attend PyCon. In fact, I think the one Swedish speaker was there in last PyCon. So you get in touch with the world scenario about what is the industry wants, what do you need to do in 3 years. They have the foresight to tell you what will happen in 3 years and what you need to prepare yourself. Just take note, go to conferences. As previously mentioned by the speaker, certifying yourself, well, it gives an edge, honestly speaking. If it's a well-recognized certification, it will make your life a lot simpler. OCBJP will make your life a lot simpler if you want to work in Oracle. If you have, Azure or AWS certifications, life will be a lot simpler if you're going for DevOps or code jobs. like, so there are n number of certificates, and basically they are like, garbage right now. You have to choose the best one, and many sources are there for this. You can ask Mahendra Mehra sir. He's basically has a lot of certifications, a lot of understanding what is important. If you don't know what you want to do, you can ping him and get an insight over what things are relevant nowadays and what is not, and have a good starting point. Don't hesitate in starting, because the more you wait, the more you lose time. Even if you choose the first course wrong, it doesn't matter, because the next course is always there. So just start doing some certification, some courses, to get an idea about what knowledge is standard. Also, our college is becoming good. Year on year, we are getting better. Our students are getting better. We are reaching a point where we're getting to the top of Mumbai. Like IIT Bombay is obviously the best, but yeah, we're getting pretty good. In fact, inside entire Bombay, you hardly find 2 or 3 colleges in my company other than me, other than our company and our college and IITs and NITs. So basically, our college is getting really good. Somewhere in the near future, I expect someone of you will directly get a job immediately from college to Google, Facebook, Amazon, like on the off campus or anything, but you will get it. For you to be that person, you need to be prepared for that. See GSOC, Google Summer of Code. Google Summer of Code, you should be doing it. Start looking into what Google Summer of Code is. I forgot to mention in the slide, but GSOC is a common point among most of the high performance I've ever seen. Do GSOC, do CodeJam, do all the Google competitions, Kickstart, prepare this, and get those, so that point alone will get you a job. If you have a GSOC, that point alone will get you a super dream job, 12, 13, 15 lakhs, no problems. So just believe that you can do it. A lot of times the belief is the problem rather than the skill. So you talent, belief and preparation is the key. Start preparing in second year. You have a lot of time. I have studied in 1 month, and it's quite possible to study it in 1 year, 2 year easily. Just look out for all these competitions like GSOC. The same critical thing, I cannot stress it enough. A GSOC is good, like better than maybe like 99% of the internships you are gonna get. It's that critical. I'm sorry I forgot, but please do it. Please attempt it. Just the research for GSOC will tell you like 100 different project ideas of 100 extremely powerful companies across the world. And when you get the job, you'll interact with the company. You'll have an opportunity of directly getting placed in like Oracle, Google, Canonical, the software company that handles Ubuntu, KDE, the software company that handles Kubuntu, etc. Just try this. Third year, you're nearing the interview time. Basically, you have, I think, about 6 or 7 months left, 4 to 6 months left. Not much time left, but we always know studying 1 day before the exam, you are the most optimal at that time. So basically, this time is the time when you need to focus on getting you molded into what you need to be right now, which company you want to go. You choose a target company or a stack. If you want to go to Oracle, you damn well be good with Java. If you want to go to Daulat, you have to be good with C++. If you want to go to DOSStack, you have to be good with Ruby on Rails. So all these companies have something in common, like some tech stack or some toolkit they use. You can just ask alumni, professors, LinkedIn, online to find help on this. Choose the company that uses a tech stack that is kind of common. For example, if you choose Java, you have plenty of companies. 2 companies, Interactive Brokers and Oracle, come into my mind immediately. Choose such a company so that you don't get stuck if you don't get job placed there. So you choose a company like that and start building projects on this. A great start to any web application is a to-do app. So basically just make a to-do app and keep on adding features, add high availability, add redundancy, add error logging, add performance measurement metrics, add distributed databases. It's overkill, but who cares about overkill in a pet project? By the way, by this time, you should be using Git. If you don't use Git, you will lose your work and you'll kill yourself because you didn't use Git. Furthermore, Git is world level standard in, I would say disaster recovery and collaboration work. GitHub is the leading tool to, collaborate. So you better start getting good at Git or be an expert even. Or if you know Git good enough and you don't think you need to learn any more, then start teaching others. It is worth a lot. Now also use some sort of DevOps to, ease your, deployment, testing, how to improve your normal project from your house to, production level. Docker, Travis CI, Selenium, these tools are very simple. You can learn them in like 1 week each. But if you learn it right now, you have a confidence to, use it in company, and you should prove yourself and not about others. Get familiar with unit testing. That's also critical. If without unit testing, your scopes are very slim in company. Start maintaining a GitHub profile and, maintaining projects on that, with diverse projects on whatever you like or whatever you want to be, so that you can, prove it to the interviewer that you are not just a person who has certifications, who has no proof, so to speak. You can literally, if they ask you, have you worked on this, you can take out your mobile in the interview, put it in front of him, show him what you have created on the spot. That will, completely eradicate any doubts they have on your skill level. And if you explain it well enough on the spot, that's it. You won the lottery, you get the job. Last point, get familiar with Linux. A lot of you might think it's a pain to switch to Linux. It's a bit hard to get it installed. Honestly, it's like a million times better than in like 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Everything is so much simpler. And I installed my first Linux in like first year or something like that. So it's not hard, just do it. You're a computer engineer, you need to be good at this. Also, it opens a ton of opportunities. You get system admins, you get core team, you get infrastructure management, you get security and penetration testing. You get like huge bucket load of opportunities that a full stack developer doesn't get. Just do it. It's not that hard. If you get stuck, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help anybody with Linux. If not me, you can reach to Mahindra. So there are plenty of people who are good with Linux. On Linux, community is really good. In fact, it's better than YouTube or Twitch or any other streaming service, Facebook. It's way better. You can just ask online and get help like within 10 minutes. You'd be surprised at how helpful the people are online. Stack Overflow is also good help. In fact, it has many sister sites that help with Ubuntu in particular. Just get good with Linux now. The best way to do this, just uninstall Windows and install Linux. You will eventually get good at it because you want to do your work. Currently, web is what is happening right now. Anything that happens, IoT, machine learning, anything in the end is connected to web. So you better be clear on how HTTP works. HTTP is a tried and tested method of getting data across in the internet. It's a very clear request response paradigm that's happening there. You have to be clear with this thing. No matter what you learn, you need to know this basic clear so that you don't get confused in the language's internal implementation. Whenever anybody asks you about how page is rendered, they don't want you saying something about servlets or how Java does it, or how Python does it, or X does it. What they want to know is, do you understand what a request is? Do you understand what a response is? Do you understand what is status codes? Do you understand what type of HTTP verbs are there? This is what is important right now. So you need to know what request response is and roughly, get better at understanding the core here. A understanding of the internet architecture also helps. Computer networks is a good introduction of the TCP/IP stack. Just learn that. Learn some. Okay, after this, I think one more point I want to say is that you need to, whatever language you learned in second year, learn something other than that. Okay. So for example, if you learn Java and servlets and JDK in the first like second year, now you need to go learn some other thing like Ruby on Rails, which is by the way pretty good for beginners. Ruby on Rails, so that you understand what part of this application is the theory part implementation and what part is the implementation specific details of the framework. Lot of my knowledge is basic knowledge. What I gained is not by learning it directly, but by learning like a number of things and understanding the differences between them. So if you are a jack of all trades, you will eventually become master, or like not master but adequate in all trades, because knowledge reinforces like multiple other knowledges. Like if you know what an aeroplane does and if you know what a ship does, you understand the logic about uh, speed and supply chain and logistics. Like even though those are very disparate things, you understand the core thing that airplanes and ships have in common, which is transportation and logistics. Similar to that, if you learn Java, Spring Boot, and maybe from Java, and if you learn Express.js from Node, you'll be damn clear on what HTTP is, what kind of hacks you can do, what kind of optimizations you can do. So learn something else here so that you become kind of a polyglot, multiple language, person with multiple language. Now research your target company and learn what problems they solve. This helps a lot in interviews. Like my company, BrowserStack, is essentially a cross-platform testing environment. We solve problems regarding huge scalability, like 25,000 companies we serve them. We have like 10,000 devices under us. We are routing each request real time, like just like we are talking right now over webinar. BrowserStack not only transfers webinar, it transmits controls as well. Like I can control your computer simultaneously for tens of thousands of computers, 10,000 computers roughly, and at the same time cleaning, factory resetting everything in like minimal time at high efficiency loads. If you learn this thing about a company, the BrowserStack can come to us, and in the interview mention this, you automatically have a leg up over other people who have not bothered to do the research. This might just get you the job that you are not qualified to, but you put in an effort to get it, to know it. As I say, if you don't know your enemy, well, your target, you will never be able to defeat it. Lastly, you don't have much time left. It's like, as I said, 4 to 6 months. Make a schedule and stick to it, so that you have to, before getting to the interview, you still have to clear the aptitude. Okay, that I don't know why is a bit hard for our college to do sometimes. So you should actually be sure that you actually get past the aptitude. Go through Agarwal and other books that teach you about this. Man, make sure you get to the interview. If you don't get to the interview, the past 3 years of your life were kind of a waste. You see, so you have to get to the interview to talk to a human to prove that you're good at your stuff, and you should not kind of be rejected by a machine which has no idea about your skill set. You might as well give, like, that will be way more hurtful if you don't get, if you know you are good enough but you don't get past because of aptitude. So don't ignore the aptitude section. Have some preparation for it, make a schedule for it, prepare on that, discuss with your friends, ask questions to your friends, and kind of talk to your friends and improve yourself so that you get better at it. So please don't fail an aptitude test. That will be like a shame for the effort you're putting. Just before the interview, that's like if September starts in October, September. Point number 1: be confident. If you're not confident, you are not getting the job. As simple as that. There'll be somebody else who will fake it till he makes it. If you don't know things, you just fake it till you know it. Simple as that. Don't lie it, just do white lies. Like if they ask, do you know about TCP stack? You just say, sorry, not TCP, the other stack, the ISO standard of the TCP stack. I forgot the name. If you say about, if you know that particular old standard that nobody uses, then you say, no, I don't know. I know, I am more familiar with TCP IP stack, which is more relevant today because the 900% of the internet is on TCP stack. Just kind of shift the slightly to it without lying outright, and be confident so that on a human level, on a personal level, they can trust you before they get impressed by your skills. Geek4Geeks and Glassdoor and a lot of other online sources have the exact questions for the interview you want to go, especially for super dream companies like Amazon, Google, LinkedIn, Uber. They directly have the questions for that. Don't be stupid and not use this, okay? Please just go to this website and find what interview questions are there. This is like, it takes 1 day of effort. In fact, I'll tell you my personal story. I am in Rostock now, but I in fact got a job in Interactive Brokers, a Java company. I personally don't like Java particularly. In fact, I would say I'm bad at it. I didn't even know any frameworks per se, Spring or Hibernate. I learned everything I knew. Like, I knew the basics, okay? The basics is important. I was very solid with basics and fundamentals. 1 day, 2 days before the exams, I pinged the Java experts of my company, and they are who helped me build this PPT. So I asked them and learned from them what is important in Java, like what is asking the questions. I asked, went to online, found Interactive Brokers, what questions they asked, and I came to know they asked me riddles and puzzles a lot. I came to know that they talk about a lot of they talk a lot about how to get excuse me JVM working, etc., etc. Very specific questions. So I just learned them and I got the interview, honestly speaking. So you need to be good at fundamentals and research a lot. As Sun Tzu said, you have to know your enemy to defeat it first. Repeating this again and again. You have to know what you're targeting before if you want to get it. You should not rely on friends because you don't know what they want in life. They might want to be a marketing person in deep inside. So just rely on yourself here and try your utmost to understand what your company wants and target yourself to it. And I think one more way of building confidence is like, before going to the interviews, take fake interviews between your friends and build up your confidence to tell your answers. A lot of times interviewers ask, what have you done in project, and you get stuck in like indecision on what you want to say first. Like, you have done a lot of things, yeah, like amazing, you have done content, backend, Docker, deployment, Ansible, everything you have done. But when you want to tell it to another person, you don't know which order to tell it, or you just get confused and everything. So prepare these answers beforehand and, kind of talk to your friends and, improve your presentation skills, so to speak. Body language is a key. You cannot be shy and twitching your fingers and say the answers. It won't help at all. So prep with your friends and kind of build your confidence, and have some mock interviews once and again, so that you can kind of get in touch of what faults you might have and how to improve it. Pressing it in, it is the first time you will have some flaws you don't notice. We are human, we can have mistakes, but after doing 10 times, I'm pretty sure that all of you will fix it. A bit controversial point I want to say, but be one of the first few people to get to the interview, okay? The thing with interviews is that the interviewers are sitting on the interview for a long time, and they are human. They get bored, they get tired, they get headaches. If you are the last person in like 100 people batch, you are 90% not getting the job, unless you are like genius beyond the clouds or something like that. So you need to be the one of the first 10 people. A lot of times this is not under our control, but if you're the first 10%, one of the first 10%, and you make an impact on the interview, you will get the job. So don't be like, I will wait and see what the interview will ask questions and I'll take help from others. No, you have already prepared what you can till now. You are at your optimal condition when you go to the interview hall. You need to be the first few persons to get to the interview and make that first impression matter so that you get the job. When you're in placements, while you need to help your friends, it's a battlefield. There are only so many super dream jobs. You need to get one of them. So don't wait for others. After helping yourself, you can help others, but you need to be one of the first here to get there. And this is a recommendation from a couple of my friends. So please take this seriously. Don't laze around in the interview hall. hook or crook get to the first, second people. Okay. So this is what you need to do in interviews. So in the last section, well, 4th years, well, you don't have much time left. Your college is ending now. I know you, there may be some of you. So basically, it's a bad time. But it's a good thing in the silver lining. You are in a CS job, computer science job, remote work. Well, which other job, remote work is much easier than CS. I mean, that's the best place to be right now. You're doing the best place. You don't have to problem. You don't have to go outside. You don't have to get, you're not essential services. You will not get screwed up by coronavirus. This is you are in the best job position you can possibly be in this condition. Best approach is you have a lot of free time. Taking a drop here is fine. Not a big deal. Enjoy your life. It's a good time to be. Whatever episodes you have missed in this time, it's the best time to catch up on it. I hear there are a lot of episodes right now on Netflix. It's a good place. In fact, I myself have bought Amazon Fire Stick to enjoy some episodes of some anime and some Netflix stuff. It's a quite good time to be in. But don't forget that there are approaches. Try getting freelance jobs. Freelance market is still working. You can go to freelancers.com, upwork.com, portal.com. N number of them are there with varying level of skill levels. Just keep on going, keep on spamming people, spamming applications to jobs online. You will eventually get one. Make sure that you at least attend to these websites online every once in a while, every day preferably. Don't forget to check your mail, because one time I got a job, I didn't look at the job posting for like 1 week after that. So just keep on checking that and just try your level best to get a freelance job. It will help a lot when you actually get a, when you enter a company as a full-time employee, because then they will know that this person is responsible enough to do a job without supervision. And I think that's the best endorsement a person can get. A lot of juniors have problems finding what to do without a lot, hands-on guidance. And if you prove that you're good at, freelance, then bingo, you have won the lottery. You get the job quite easily. And this is not just the case for getting the first level job. Even promotions, it's actually where, in my company at least, level 1 is like, you need to know what you're doing. Level 2, you need to know what you're doing, why you're doing, and you need to be able to do it yourself. And you need to be able to help others do it. So if you do this freelance job good enough, you're already at a level of L2 in terms of experience and handling people, if not for knowledge. There are a lot of websites that give you remote job offerings directly, not just freelance. One new one that I've noticed recently is called cutshort.io. I'm pretty sure most people don't know about that. So cutshort.io is a place you can get jobs, quite interesting jobs. Stack Overflow, in case you don't know, it's a good place to get job postings and as well as LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, don't just update, keep on updating a bio profile personally, because nobody's Vela enough to go and check your bio every time. You are just one of a million people. Just post your bio occasionally on your feed so that other people, your connections, notice it, and they just might be in need of someone who codes, and your post comes in front of them and you get the job. Bingo. Life is a lot depending on your luck. So try all your best to put yourself out in the market by putting yourself in like a resume. You can use WhatsApp, you can use Insta. Lastly, well, pray a lot that you get a job. If not that, please don't be depressed. It's not your fault. It's not because you're not good enough. You are probably the best you can be. Just wait it out. This will eventually get better. Economy is much stronger now than before. This is India. We will survive. You will get a job later. It is fine. So that's about rounds up my kind of go through for all 4 years. I will get this PPT to, it's uploaded on my GitHub, and I'll give this to organizers. You can refer it to it later. In case you want some help regarding any of the points I mentioned, you can reach out to me. My email is, well, I'll you can get it from the organizers. My phone number you can get from the organizers. Any issues you want in particular, you can just ping to me and reach out. And I guess that's it from my side. So these are the fine people who helped me actually make this. All of this information is not mine alone. Like Banu, Shweta, Komudi, Uday, Joshua, Samsung, all of these people helped me get these ideas and coagulated. We have like put in like 7-8 hours of effort to get this to this point. Especially Shweta, she helped me write the PPT and proofread it. Thanks to these people to kind of help me make this. And yeah, that's it. That's from my side. So any questions from your side?
Well, thank you, Edwin. We'll quickly take question and answers from the students. So I request all the students to kindly post questions using the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, Edwin. Yeah, I'll be taking the presentership from you.
Here then. Okay.
Just remain on it. Yeah. Okay, so Edwin, we have a question from Nitesh Prasad. He says, how do interview happen at product-based companies? Is it algo-based or project development-based? You want me to repeat it?
Okay, so in product-based companies, so basically, I will repeat the question. So you want to know what kind of job is there in product-based companies? Like, is it algo-based or is it like something else? That's the question, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes. And how does the interview process happen? I mean.
Okay. Okay. So basically, in a product-based company, you are making a product. So that basically means you're handling end-to-end everything in between. Like you handle creation of the product, you handle the UI of the product, you handle the development, you handle the deployment, you handle the customer support, you do everything from A to Z. So basically what they want is some like maybe like 10-15 people or maybe like 2-3% of the entire population will be based on pure algorithms, at least on the work side. And remainder of the people will be like basically maintaining the system to use those algorithms, and algorithms are just like steps. Now you have to use those algorithms to do something worthwhile, to do something business that business requires. Business is what drives the company. The business requirements are not that you have some X algorithm or Y algorithm. That is only for companies like Google, in which the entire company is based on one algorithm. But most companies have something material with it. My company is remote testing. So that product might need algorithm, but they are not a daily part of it. On the interviewing side, algorithms are important, but you don't need to be like a pro level of algorithms. You don't need to be like god level, like you create a new algorithm on the spot, or you like how why B-tree was invented, or some very complex why graphing is invented, why this is better than that. But you need to know at least the basics, like the complexities, what are the common algorithms, why are they used everywhere, and stuff like that. Essentially, you need to know the rough outline of why algorithms are used, which algorithm should be used where, what is the simplest implementation of it, and any quite simple questions like that. You don't need to be pro at it, and if you prove that you're good enough at other aspects that I mentioned till now, and not just algorithms, then that's also fine. In my interview in particular, I got one matching parenthesis question, like given a string, are the parentheses matching? And second question I got was, they created a random question and told me to make optimal algorithm for that. It was quite simple. Personally speaking, I'm not very good at algorithms, but it is not that hard. You just need to know a bit of algorithms here and there, and you'll go through it. As a standard, like you don't need to be a master in HackerRank to get past at least my company's interview, but you need to be good enough at it to be able to juggle it out. So yeah, that's my opinion regarding algorithms in product-based companies.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next question, Edwin. So we have Mr. Yash over here who has asked this question previously also in the previous session, but we couldn't take it. So we'll take it now. Please let us know your views on virtual internships. So your views on virtual internships.
Okay, so see, so I would say something like this. So when I was in like in December, one of in my company there were like 6 interns taken up for 6 months. As you can already calculate, it has been 2 months in coronavirus scenario, and obviously we are not in office. So those 6 people are now doing remote internships. Internships are worth it as long as you're doing something worthwhile in it. For example, if you go to an internship and just sit there and not do anything, or just do whatever you're doing at home, then there's no point. You have to have some improvement in some skill set, and you need to be able to tell it to the other person, like I implemented a web server that is fault tolerant and has high availability, or I improved the marketing by 10% in the time I was there, or oh, by the way, you have to do metrics. Okay, you cannot just say I learned X. That does not tell anything. If I can just Google some stack and tell that I learned X, rather you should tell I learned X and I did something with that. Like I learned main stack and I implemented a hospital bed counter machine or something that was used by XXX. So yes, virtual internships are also good. Virtual internships are obviously better than no internships. And if you didn't get normal, right now you are gonna get virtual internships anyway. So try hard for it. It's worth it. By the way, GSOC is a virtual internship. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we'll take the next question that is coming from Elvis D'Souza. He's asking which companies are optimum for Python development.
Okay, so this question, okay, I'll tell you about Python. Python is adopted by companies who either are good at, the web data science, because Python integrates very well with data science, or they just chose Python for Django. And these are the basically 2 kinds of companies that use Python. So these companies you can just find by just going LinkedIn and checking the tech stack on that. If it's an AI company, then there's like 70% chance it will be using Python. Otherwise, it'll be using R or MATLAB. And if it is mentioned directly on website Django, then that's using Django. But in the end, it honestly doesn't matter you're good at Python or not, you're going to a company with Python or not, because I personally learned Python when I was 11th. I was really good at it. Still, I'm really good at it. Then I learned Node.js. Then right now I'm working on Ruby on Rails. So that's quite a switch around happening there. As I mentioned prior, you have to be a polyglot. You have to be adaptable rather than be expert in one field. Because Python eventually will be phased out at some point of time. Something better will eventually come. You need to be better at picking up new things. What people want is a person who's adaptable and not a person who is only ever be expert at one language. And your question, I think it will be better that if you want to know how to find it, LinkedIn will be the best way to find companies with Python. And if your question is more like Python companies are better or what, then no, please don't go by that. Look, there are better fish in the market. Look into all companies. That's it.
Okay, so we have another interesting question, that is, do I really need to learn machine learning if I'm planning for a full stack developer role?
Oh no.
This is asked by Pushpak Chajed.
No. So the thing is very interesting here. So I learned machine learning in like I think 3rd year, 4th year, something like that. I did AI. In fact, my final project was on machine learning. If you don't like it, please don't waste your time in machine learning. I'm telling it to everybody. Please tell your friends, don't waste your time there, because most people, when they learn machine learning, they learn how to use the tools that somebody else has created to do machine learning on their part, and not the machine learning on itself. Because trust me, machine learning is kind of a research topic, and while it has actual use cases right now, at our level, understanding machine learning is quite hard. And this is coming from experience. Please don't waste your time in machine learning if you don't like calculus and differentiation to the next level, and you really want to be good at maths as well. Full stack developers has no relationship with machine learning. My company doesn't touch machine learning, and it's not going to touch machine learning for a long time. and my company earns a lot, huge amount of money without machine learning. You don't need machine learning to be successful. So machine learning is like a unicorn. I mean, it's a good thing to look at, but if you're in that industry, you need to be prepared to pay. For example, if you're putting in 100% effort to get into normal for good company, you need to put about 300% effort to put into a good machine learning company. And the problem with machine learning is business still doesn't know what machine learning is properly. So the thing is, even if you're the god of machine learning, if you don't get into the god level companies, well, other people won't appreciate you for it. Oh, if you want to be an entrepreneur, that's fine. You can do machine learning. You can build an awesome software. That works awesome. But you need to prepare to go beyond, PyTorch, go beyond, all these Keras. You have to be in the TensorFlow territory. You have to be in the TensorFlow library. You have to be learning about how the transformation works, how convolution network works, how deep reinforcement learning works, how the specifics work. It is not going to work if you just like 100 lines of code. I know it. It's only 100 lines. 100 lines of code and just get it done. It's not worth it. Please don't do it unless you really want to put your life behind it. That's my opinion regarding machine learning and AI and all the newfangled technologies. Okay, next question.
There's one question repeatedly being asked by Joel Francis. I would like to take this one. He's asking, can you please tell me more about Docker? So Joel, I think the time that we are left out with for answering this question won't justify the explanation. So we can take this personally. You can ping me on this, and I can give you more elaborative justification about Docker. I'll quickly move on to the next question. So Alan Almeida is asking, does Python make one lazy provided it has so many packages and inbuilt functions?
Python makes you efficient. To be honest, the biggest kind of industry right now, like package ecosystem, is NPM. So NPM has like millions of packages, and what that does is, okay, but let me tell you, rephrase this. You are not a lazy programmer if you get a job done. And what business wants from you, and business is what pays you, is essentially you need to get a job done fast, efficient, in a good way. It does not care whether you're lazy, smart, dumb, stupid, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you get your job done and make it maintainable. That's what the person wants. And actually, even Bill Gates has told Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, I like lazy people because they find the smartest solution to the hardest problem and they find it fast. I am that kind of person. I will not repeat something if that can be automated. I'm a very lazy person, I admit it. And I think it's better on your part if you're a lazy performing programmer. Next.
Edwin, if you have time, we can take a few more questions.
Yeah, I'm free actually.
Yeah, okay. So there's another question by Gavin Korea. Is asking, which technology is going to be in demand in coming 3-4 years? Is it cloud, ML, cybersecurity, etc.?
Okay. See, the thing with this is that after coming to industry, you'll understand. If you are talking about like technology like Java, even if it's like 50 years in the future, Java will still run. Okay. Even if it's the shittiest language, it is not shitty. Okay, by the way, now it's Java 11 Gen 12 is really good. But even if it's the shittiest language, as long as a lot of people are using it, it will still have a lot of opportunities. Regarding which field will improve, like cloud is definitely improving. In case you have not noticed how the world is running right now after Corona, the world is running on cloud. Amazon is running on cloud. How can you not notice it? I am not sure. But essentially, the world is on cloud right now. Cloud is already on the uprise. And cybersecurity, well, the cloud is on uprise, and how the hell can cybersecurity not be on the uprise? Cloud is like a whole set of problems waiting to happening every month. Every month there's some leak happening. So cybersecurity has to go up with cloud. And all these industries are interlinked anyway. So I think rather than this, you should be looking into what you want to do, because 40 years down the line, this decision might cost you more regret than Don't go into being like always having more money, because money is actually secondary. You just need some amount of money right now. You're just juniors. And I think you should do what you like and what is worthwhile of your time rather than, just going with the trends. Furthermore, as I referred before, you need to be a polyglot. You need to be able to adapt to whatever happens. So I think this is a non-issue from the start. Next question.
Yeah, so we have a question from Hardik Trivedi is asking, if I want to get into network security and networking, what does a company need from newbie? And do certifications helps a lot? Asking about network internships also.
I'll be honest, I have very little clue about it. In fact, to be honest, ProcessStack has like 3 people for network security. But to be honest,
So if I can take this question, if I can take this question over here, I would say that yes. Yeah. So what I feel, Hardik, is you should definitely go for certification. There are many certifications available in the market, and renowned ones like Ethica, EC Council, and there are many others by Microsoft. So it depends upon like which organization you want to pursue your certification from. And definitely certification, your skills backed up by certification will help you gain a good career in network security. So mostly every company nowadays. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, continue. I'll just add after that.
Yeah, so every company has a role specific for cybersecurity expert, or you can say security analyst or auditor. So there are a lot of jobs that are there in the market, plus which will be coming post-COVID situation, and we will see a rise in job roles like these. So it's a good planning that you have if you want to pursue a career in network security. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, one more thing I need to know, very important. So watch YouTube, people, and not the time pass videos. So in YouTube, there's this guy, note this name, Live Overflow, and basically whoever he follows, just go to this guy. He is an amazing security expert, and not just him, I have a couple of others also. If you reach out to me later on PC or personal, I will give you the list for security people. So basically, this guy does random security penetration testing from all levels, on TCP stack level, on assembly level, on game consoles, how to hack game consoles, etc. N number of very interesting topics. Every single one of his videos is essentially a new project, and he puts videos every week. So you just check out these YouTube producers. They are amazing in what they do, and there's a difference. Like this YouTube, one advantage is there for YouTube is that only those who have good content rank on the top. So you can be damn sure the people on the top, they do their research before they get in. In fact, a lot of these people, they have like more citations than what a textbook reference book has on the video, in case you ever look at the watch more section. So you go to this channel, and that will tell you something in real life, exciting way of how to make security happen. If you do that, you will get interested in security, and this goes out to everybody. In case anybody wants to know any particular topics, good YouTubers, they can then ping to me. I watch pretty diverse YouTube videos. I can give you one particularly suited for you, but yeah, for this case, it's Live Overflow. You can check it out and subscribe. Yeah, that's it. Next.
Yeah, actually, I see many questions from students that they're asking about certifications, how important they are. And nowadays we see that most of them, they do courses on Coursera or edX and many such platforms. But then they're just asking whether will it add value to their resumes? Will it be of any worth?
Okay, as I mentioned before, certifications, if you learn for learning, it's good, but certifications don't prove anything except if the certification are like OCP-JP. Now that proves a lot because that is conducted by Oracle, who maintains Java and all. But yeah, certification do help you learn that. But more importantly, the result of certification is that you have a project behind it. You have something you're done behind it. So that's what the critical part is. And as I mentioned before, deploy the thing to product, like Heroku, it's like 10 lines of code, can do it, anybody can do it. If I tell my sister in 10th grade, she can do it. So you can definitely do it. So please deploy a thing. So the showing the person, the interview, your code, and then adding that you did it from a certification to basically solidify your chance. Certificates are useful if you have something coming out of it. Okay.
So to add to
this is one of the reasons I'm telling that don't do ML.
Yeah. So add to it, I would say that certifications do validate your skill sets. They give you more structured way of learning a particular skill. But also it's important that you see, since everyone is doing it from Coursera or different other platforms that are providing it for free nowadays. But then if you get a certification from a vendor, specific to that technology, it will be a more better way of doing certification. So doing Coursera certifications are good. It validates your skill set, but also doing it from vendor specific certification will always add more value about the other certification that you're doing. So if you're doing it from Cisco, if you're doing it from IBM, if you're doing it from different vendors specific to that technology, it will add more value.
Okay, I will add another maybe unknown example for this. So there's a technology, there's a company called Salesforce. It's a huge company. So Salesforce is a software, online software that basically handles sales. And as anybody can imagine, sales is the part of the entire industry. Every company, no matter what kind of company it is, needs sales. So Salesforce is basically used by everybody. And Salesforce has certifications. Now, if you are good at Salesforce and have the certifications, you don't even need to try. You'll get a job directly. You can just apply to a company, you get the job instantaneously. And because Salesforce is there in all companies, that job will be there for the next 40 years till the time you retire. So if you want a job damn very much, you can just go and check out Salesforce, and that's a coding job, by the way. And if you have it, and if you get certification on that, it costs money though. If you get certification on that, you can be guaranteed to get a job. So yeah, as Mahendra sir said, take from vendors. They hold a lot of weight. And by the way, this is why exactly why I'm saying adding this point. ML internship are not worth much, primarily because you cannot prove your knowledge in ML as easily as you can prove the knowledge in other fields. So be very careful if you're going to ML fields. Okay, next question.
Right. Yeah, we can take the next question. There are a few questions related to blockchain. People are inquisitive about knowing whether what's the scope of blockchain in the future or present. So should pursuing blockchain as a career is a good idea?
So okay, so I'm a person at tried a lot of technologies. Coincidentally, I also tried blockchain. I think it was in third year. So basically, the thing with blockchain is that blockchain, I don't think you will have a good, well-paying job, so to speak, because blockchain by its very nature, by the logic of blockchain itself, is to currently decentralize things. So if you think about it, decentralized technology is all about giving power to the people per se, and it's not about giving power to corporation. And it is when you centralize abilities, when you get huge, market advantage, and you get a lot of income, so to speak. So any distributed technology like torrent, blockchain, all of them are essentially like more like people who want to learn about research and do amazing software. Like blockchain is an amazing software development. If you want to, like challenge yourself and learn, yeah, that's a good way to do it. But in the near future, exactly for the decentralized nature for it, blockchain won't be giving you good jobs because centralized companies don't like blockchain as it is, because it will take away control from them. So on the whole, if you want to like wait and research and enjoy your coding, blockchain is an amazing thing to do. Ethereum is a good platform. Ethereum is an amazing platform with an amazing language called Solidity. It's amazing, the technical imagery, but the thing is honestly, you will not earn much in that field right now. It's not mature enough, but it's a good place to be as a hobby to be, because eventually in the future we are going heading to one of the two future. In the dystopian world, we'll be like the world is centralized, and in the utopia, so to speak, everything is decentralized. So you can prepare yourself for that. But for now, no, blockchain does not have good scope according to me.
Okay, so we have plenty of questions on R programming. So if I can quickly summarize all their questions into one, they are just basically asking R versus Python. What should they go for?
This is like a very off the topic for me because I am not interested in it particularly. But the thing is, Python is becoming quite good at data science. In fact, very reputed industries are universities are using Python, not industries, universities, and change starts from universities like MIT. Those people bring technologies in, and the world takes it over. So basically, Python has a very good scope. Not just that, I think we cannot belittle that. So even if you just learn, if you are comparing ML engineer with ML engineer who is a full stack developer, we all know who we will choose is for the full stack developer add-on, because we all need some polyglotness right there. So Python would be the preferred way, unless you are in a, you have to learn R. Like you have to learn R, then you stick with it because it's not bad per se. In the end, Python and R, again, it comes down to, you need to be able to flexible to be learn both of them at the same time. I've learned R for like a couple of weeks and it is honestly not that hard. It's basically maths and Python is basically coding, and it is essentially interchangeable after a couple of weeks of working on it. So don't get stuck on this question, just pick one and get started. The next.
Okay, so we'll now just wind up with a quick word of thanks to Mr. Edwin. Edwin, please accept our sincere appreciations for the outstanding presentation you made to our students about your experiences with the interview processes and how to prepare for the interview processes. Since we are entering